So, it's midnight, right? You're staring at your screen.
Oh, the absolute worst time to be staring at a screen.
Totally.
Okay.
And you're reading over this brilliantly written AI-generated report. You're just about to hit send to your biggest client.
And it looks good, I bet.
Oh, it looks incredible. The tone is authoritative. The structure is absolutely flawless. Like, even the bullet points are aligned perfectly.
A masterpiece.
Right. But right before your finger actually clicks the mouse, something catches your eye.
Oh.
Yeah, a core metric right there in paragraph 2 looks just, well, slightly off.
So you check the source data.
Exactly. You pull up your raw data to double check, and the number is just flat out wrong.
Ouch.
So you check the next one, also wrong. Suddenly you get that horrible, that cold sweat.
The realization that you almost sent it.
Yes, realizing that this entire perfectly polished document is basically just a beautifully written work of fiction.
It is a visceral, terrifying feeling.
It really is. And that panic, that is exactly what happens when you fall into the expectation gap.
And it's happening in offices everywhere, every single day. That exact moment of sudden realization is the friction point we are dissecting today.
And to do that, we are doing a deep dive into this really fascinating piece by software engineer Aaron Rose. It's titled The Secret Life of AI, The Expectation Gap.
It's a great piece.
It really is. The mission of our deep dive today is to figure out exactly how to prompt, how to think about and how to actually get reliable results from AI without getting burned.
Because nobody wants that midnight cold sweat.
Exactly. And Rose uses this brilliant narrative device to explain it all. He frames the whole concept as a conversation between two colleagues.
Yeah, he sets a very distinct scene. We are in this grand, slightly imposing Victorian library in London.
Love the setting.
Right, you can almost visualize the towering bookshelves, smell the old paper, and hear the rain hitting those massive windows.
Yes, it creates this perfect atmosphere of like old world wisdom meeting cutting edge tech. Our two characters are Margaret, who is this incredibly grounded, wise senior software engineer.
And Timothy, her junior colleague.
Right. And the story kicks off with Timothy walking into the library on this gray morning. He hasn't even bothered to unwind his scarf.
He's just stressed.
Completely defeated. He drops a folder onto the heavy wooden table, and inside that folder is a failed quarterly report.
The Midnight Panic Report.
Exactly that one. He had given the AI everything it should have needed, right? The raw data, a past report for reference, the client's name, the deadline.
The whole prompt package.
Yeah. And the result he got back sounded absolutely flawless.
I mean, it had the exact rhythm, the right corporate vocabulary, the persuasive flow of a high-level quarterly report.
But half the figures were completely fabricated.
Which is so dangerous.
It is. The conclusions had nothing to do with the spreadsheets he actually provided. He'd almost sent it to the client, only catching the disaster at the last possible second before giving up and going to sleep.
A close call.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Timothy feels totally betrayed by the technology here. He looks at Margaret and he says, I handed it the wheel and walked away.
That specific phrase, handed at the wheel, is where Margaret really stops him in his tracks.
It's a telling phrase.
It is.
Yeah.
Because Timothy thinks he just experienced a software glitch. He thinks the machine is broken. But Margaret, with this very calm, analytical perspective, she completely reframes the situation.
She turns it around on him.
Exactly. She points out that this isn't a technology failure at all. It is a management failure.
Wow. A management failure.
Yeah, his mistake wasn't using the AI. His mistake was abdicating his responsibility to it.
It reminds me of hiring a movie set designer to build a real bridge.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. If you hire a brilliant Hollywood set designer to build a bridge across a river, they're going to build something that looks visually stunning.
It'll look perfect on camera.
Exactly. The rivets will be painted beautifully. The rust will be shaded perfectly. It will look exactly like a real bridge.
But you can't drive on it.
No. The moment you drive a real truck over it, the moment you apply real-world load, it collapses. Because it was built for appearance, not structural integrity.
That is exactly what Margaret is telling Timothy. He basically let the AI build a Hollywood set.
It produced something that looked right, but looking right and being right are two completely different things.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of why AI behaves this way, which is something users rarely actually understand.
We just sort of assume it thinks like we do.
Exactly. We constantly project human cognition onto these models. When we ask a question, we think of them as these superpowered search engines.
Like it's going into a filing cabinet.
Right. We imagine the AI running into a vast digital library, finding a verified fact in a reliable database, and bringing that specific fact back to us. But large language models do not retrieve facts.
They just generate text.
Yes, they mathematically predict what a correct answer should look like based on patterns.
So it doesn't actually know the Q3 revenue. It just knows what words usually surround the concept of Q3 revenue.
Precisely. The AI maps words in a giant mathematical space. It knows the word revenue and the word increased are often close together in business reports.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's calculating probability, not truth. It literally does not possess a mechanism to know if the number 12% is a fact or just a mathematically probable fiction.
That is wild.
Because of that architecture, plausible and accurate are entirely unlinked in the system.
Totally unlinked.
The AI doesn't know the difference between a real statistic and a fake one. It only knows that a quarterly report typically contains a number with a percentage sign right in this specific part of the paragraph.
And the truly dangerous part is the delivery, isn't it?
Oh, the confidence.
Yes. A completely wrong, hallucinated answer arrives with the exact same smooth, authoritative, confident tone as a completely accurate one.
There is zero hesitation.
It doesn't stutter when it's guessing.
That is the crux of the danger. I mean, think about a human intern. An intern who is guessing will usually give you cues.
Right. They'll say, I think it's around 12%. Or they'll just look nervous.
Exactly. The AI will confidently declare that revenue fell by 40% due to a non-existent supply chain crisis. And it will do so with the conviction of a seasoned CEO.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And that is why for anything verifiable, factual, or numerical, human eyes aren't just helpful. They are absolutely non-negotiably required.
Which begs the question, why do we fall for it? Why do smart, capable people like Timothy, and honestly, so many of us, trust the AI blindly in the first place?
We want it to be easy.
Right. Why do we expect it to just do the job for us from start to finish? This is where we hit the core concept of the source material, the expectation gap.
The expectation gap is this dangerous space between what you believe the AI will do and what it actually does.
Belief versus reality.
Yeah. Timothy believed it would act as a reliable, self-sufficient analyst. He thought he could outsource the thinking and the execution entirely.
But the reality is quite different.
Very different. The reality is AI acts as a highly capable first drafter. It is a drafter that fundamentally requires human oversight to actually cross the finish line.
So what does this all mean? How did this gap get so wide in our collective consciousness? The author points out something that feels so incredibly obvious once you hear it.
It's all about the marketing.
It is a marketing illusion. Nobody tells users up front that they need to babysit the AI. The tech companies building these tools have billions of dollars on the line.
They need to sell it.
They have every incentive in the world to market them with words like extraordinary, powerful, revolutionary, or autonomous.
And zero incentive to highlight the limitations.
Exactly. When you watch a tech keynote or one of those sleek demos online, you are seeing the tool operating under absolutely ideal conditions.
It's basically magic tricks.
Right. It is carefully curated to look like magic. The prompt is perfectly engineered in advance, the data is totally clean, and the output is guaranteed to succeed.
But then you, the actual end user, sit down at your desk.
And it's messy. You have unstructured spreadsheets, a stressed-out client, super vague instructions, and real stakes.
The contrast between the marketing magic and the messy reality is just jarring.
You're expecting this genius consultant, and you get a very fast, highly articulate, but occasionally careless assistant.
That's a perfect description.
But Margaret's advice to Timothy isn't to just throw the laptop out the window. It's to clearly define the boundaries of the tool. You really have to know what it is actually good at versus where it reliably falls short.
Yeah, and if we look at its actual strengths, AI is genuinely remarkable at generating structure.
Yeah.
It is incredible at getting you past the blank page.
Oh, definitely.
It excels at first drafts, summarizing long transcripts, rewording clunky text, providing plain language explanations of complex topics.
Spotting broad themes.
Right, and writing boilerplate code. It thrives in any domain where making, quote, a reasonable attempt provides the bulk of the value.
Because if I need a list of 10 marketing ideas for a new coffee mug and 3 of them are just terrible, it doesn't matter.
None at all.
The reasonable attempt still gave me 7 good ideas and saved me an hour of staring at the ceiling. The bad ideas don't cost me anything to just delete.
Exactly. But flip that scenario. AI becomes highly unreliable when precision is the entire point of the task.
When you can't afford to just delete the bad ideas.
Right. If the math must be exactly right, if the logical reasoning must be airtight step by step, if the output is going unreviewed directly to a client.
That's the danger zone.
That is where the architecture of predicting text completely falls apart.
So we know it's just a first drafter. And we understand this expectation gap created by all the marketing hype. But how do we actually close that gap in our daily workflow?
That's the practical part.
Right, before you sit down and type a single word into that prompt box, how do you set yourself up to succeed instead of ending up in a cold sweat at midnight?
Margaret actually gives Timothy a framework for this.
3 non-negotiable rules.
Yes, 3 rules before you even touch the keyboard. Rule number 1 is assess the cost of being wrong.
Which makes sense.
Before you start typing, you have to pause and ask yourself, what happens if the AI hallucinates in this specific scenario?
Like, what are the stakes?
Exactly. If you're asking it for a quirky recipe for Tuesday night dinner, the cost of being wrong is super low. Maybe your pasta tastes a bit weird.
Big deal.
But if the cost is high, say you are summarizing a legal contract, compiling financial data, or drafting a client-facing proposal, your review process must be proportionally thorough.
You cannot skim a document where a hallucinated clause could literally result in a lawsuit.
Never. Remember, the AI's extreme confidence has absolutely no relationship to its actual accuracy.
It will confidently lie to the board of directors for you if you let it.
Without batting a digital eye.
But even if you're hyper aware of those stakes, there's another trap Timothy fell into. Rule number 2, context is everything.
This is a big one.
The AI only works with what is in the current conversation. It doesn't know your company culture, it doesn't know your client's weird quirks, and it certainly doesn't know the unwritten industry norms unless you explicitly type them out.
You really have to treat every new chat window as if the AI has profound amnesia.
Like a goldish?
Basically, yes. It is a blank slate. The gap between a vague prompt, like write a quarterly report, and a precise prompt that includes your constraints, your target audience, the desired tone, and the specific goal, well, that is the difference between total failure and brilliant success.
But hang on, wait, don't some platforms have memory features now?
They do, yes.
I thought it remembers who you are across different chats. Like, I can tell it I work in podcasting, and it remembers that next week. Doesn't that sort of solve the context amnesia problem?
You'd think so, but it's actually a bit of a double-edged sword. And the source text addresses this exact nuance.
Yeah, it does.
Yes. Platforms are introducing memory that carries context between sessions. But Margaret's core principle remains strictly the same. Never assume it holds the right context.
Don't assume.
Right. Even with a memory feature, the AI might misapply a remembered fact. It might weigh the context of a project you did 3 months ago over the nuances of the current one.
That would be a mess.
It would. You still have to verify that it's operating under the correct assumptions for this specific task. You cannot abdicate that responsibility to an automated memory feature.
That makes a lot of sense. A memory feature doesn't know if the client literally changed their mind yesterday over a phone call.
Exactly.
Which transitions us perfectly to rule number 3, stay in the loop.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, staying in the loop is the ultimate antidote to the hands-off-the-wheel problem.
But it's important to clarify what that means, right?
It is. Staying in the loop does not mean you have to micromanage the AI. You don't need to second-guess every single comma, adjective, or preposition it chooses.
Because that totally defeats the purpose of using it.
Exactly. You just write it yourself. Staying in the loop means reading the final output with your full, undivided attention. It means stopping before you hit send and asking yourself, does this actually match what I know to be true in the real world? Would I stake my personal, professional reputation on this document right now?
And if the answer is no, you do not send it.
Period.
So let's take all of this theory, the expectation gap, the probabilistic mechanics, these 3 rules, and apply them concretely.
Back to the library.
Yes. How should Timothy have handled that quarterly report in the first place? How do we build a bridge that doesn't collapse? Margaret lays out a completely new workflow for him. 3 distinct steps: draft, verify, judge.
It is a brilliant, highly practical breakdown.
Walk us through it.
Sure. So step 1 is draft. This is where you give the AI the structural heavy lifting. You ask it to write the narrative sections, the executive summary, the background context, the general commentary about market trends.
The fluffy stuff.
Exactly. This is where you let it do what it does best, generating structure and tone. That strong first attempt saves you hours of agonizing over a blank page.
But then you immediately move to step 2, which is verify.
And this is crucial.
This is where the human takes the wheel back. You do not ask the AI to calculate the quarterly revenue. You do not ask it to determine the profit margins. No math for the AI. You pull those exact, verifiable figures from your secure source data, like your spreadsheets, your internal company software, and you insert those numbers into the drafted text manually.
You let the AI build the walls, but you pour the concrete foundation yourself.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, step 3, judge.
Judge is where your expertise shines. You read the conclusions the AI has drawn from the text, and you apply your human domain knowledge.
Margaret uses a really wonderful phrase here.
She does. She says the AI knows roads in general, but only you know the specific road.
I love that.
The AI understands what a Q3 financial slump looks like theoretically, but it doesn't know that your Q3 slump was because your main supplier's warehouse flooded.
It doesn't know about that nuanced, off-the-record conversation you had with the account manager on Tuesday where they shifted their priorities.
Only you have that context.
Yeah.
So only you can judge if the conclusions actually fit the complex reality of your specific situation.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Timothy has this moment of profound realization sitting there in the library. He looks at Margaret and he says, I think I expected it to be smarter than it is.
And Margaret tells him that's exactly what everyone does at first.
We project human intelligence onto the machine. We expect it to be a genius.
And then, the very first time it messes up a basic math problem or hallucinates a widely known fact, people experience this severe psychological whiplash.
They swing entirely the other way and decide the AI is totally useless and foolish.
The pendulum swings violently from blind, unearned trust to total dismissive cynicism. But the truth of the technology lives squarely in the middle.
It's neither a genius nor a fool.
Right. It is a genuinely capable transformative tool, but it operates within very specific, rigid boundaries. And the only way you learn where those boundaries are is by using it, hitting those edges, and adjusting your expectations.
Finding the limits.
Every single task you give it teaches you where it excels and where it breaks. Over time, that knowledge compounds. You develop an intuitive sense of exactly how much leash to give it for any given task.
Honestly, knowing those boundaries is going to be the defining professional skill of the next decade.
I completely agree.
So how does our story in the Victorian Library end? Timothy leaves. He tells Margaret that she went back and fixed the report himself.
For him.
Yeah, it took him 3 grueling hours of manual verification. But the ultimate victory, the thing Margaret actually praises him for, is that he knew the report was wrong before he sent it.
He didn't let the expectation gap ruin his relationship with his client.
Exactly. He caught the error, and in doing so, he finally understood that AI is a collaborator, not a replacement.
It's a hard-won lesson for Timothy, but a really vital one for all of us. And the source material leaves us with a great teaser for the next step in this journey.
What's that?
Once you understand the expectation gap, and once you master the draft verified judge workflow, the next evolution is mastering the art of the prompt.
Prompting.
Yeah, it's the realization that the quality of your question determines absolutely everything about the quality of the answer you receive. Prompting isn't just a technical skill, it's a high-level human communication skill.
It really is. But before we wrap up today, there's a question I can't get out of my head, and I want you, the listener, to think about this next time you use these tools.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spent this whole time dissecting the idea of AI as the ultimate first drafter, right?
Yes.
If we are truly moving into a world where AI takes over all the heavy lifting of generating first drafts, structuring the blank page, and making those reasonable attempts, will the most valuable human professional skill simply become the art of editing and judgment?
That's a deep shift.
And if that happens, if we spend our entire careers only verifying and judging what machines write, rather than wrestling with the blank page ourselves, how will that change the way human beings actually learn to think? Because so much of thinking is the struggle of drafting.
That is a profound question to walk away with. The struggle of creation, the friction of figuring out how to articulate an idea, is often where our deepest understanding is forged.
Exactly.
If you bypass the draft entirely, we have to ensure we aren't bypassing our own comprehension along with it.
A perfect reminder. Keep that in mind the next time you are staring at a perfectly polished, AI-generated email at midnight.
Before you hit send.
Yes. Before you confidently hit that send button, remember, Timothy, check the numbers, judge the context, and make sure you are still the one driving the car. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the secret life of AI. We encourage you to go test these boundaries in your very next project.